So today's presentation is going to be pretty exciting. We got to get through some formalities first, but then I'm going to kind of apply some of the software that's currently in the trading room and show you kind of plant the seeds of where we can go with this in implementing, say, one or two of your sessions during the semester into it. Okay, so first, what is the trading room? It's basically just a high-tech computer lab. That's it. It has some neat features, so it's easily marketable. Students are excited about it. They just haven't been going there too much, so we need to bring them there. That's part of the reason I was hired. I'm also teaching 3 different courses, so I've been a little crazy. That's why my hair is so messy. But it's a really cool computer lab on the Boca campus. Now, if you teach in Davie, of course, you may be thinking to run out the door. The nice part is we're looking to get more funding from outside sources. And if we can get a bit more, we can get a lot more of these. And I'll speak about that promotion in a bit. So once we get more of these, you can bring them down here and use it in a Davie computer lab, just as well as you could there. So don't run out the door yet. Where is it? It's on the Boca campus, right off the College of Business atrium. Who's in charge of it? You would think me, since I'm giving this presentation, but it's not. Dr. Rainford Knight is the director of the trading room. I'm working under him and Dr. Rod, who's an associate dean there. There is a website and some contact info for the room. So this will be published if you wanted to go to it. You could get a tour. You could just call me. I could show you around. Of course, the most important thing they have here is the sponsor program. So if you just feel like FAU is paying you too much and you want to donate some money, I'm sure they'll take it. But, okay. Enough being funny. Let's go back. Okay, so what does it look like? These are the pictures on the site. I don't think it really tells you from there. There's only 2 or 3 pictures. The fancy stuff is you have a nice ticker tape up. Oops, sorry. You have a nice ticker tape surrounding the entire room and even outside the lab. But educationally, that's not really the key, right? That's fancy. It gets people to look. It gets people to talk about it. But the educational value isn't there. Inside the room, as you can see here, there's 25 workstations. Here are some pictures I took. Of course, they're not of the same quality. I took them from my iPhone. But you can see back here, back here, they have a huge projection screen, and they also have other monitors that can double as TVs. And you'll see some of the things that are there is cable access. And there's some use in a wide variety of. Also, I just want to point your attention to over here. The main lab is downstairs, but they also have a spillover room upstairs. So if your course size is bigger than 50, you can have your students up there, and you can have a video streaming you, and it will go to them as well. So it accommodates all but the biggest classes. Okay, so what's in it? 25 dual monitor workstations. If you've ever been to a Wall Street firm, you'll see they have 4 monitors surrounding each of the traders or the professionals there. We have dual monitors, which is nice. Other university finance labs, 2 monitors. Other chairs. And then, of course, you have the 20 chairs. Those are single monitor. Microsoft Office is in there. Cable TV access. 1 Bloomberg terminal. I have it here today. I highlight that because that's probably the most important component right now in terms of software. The ticker tape we spoke about and that large projection screen. You may be saying, is that all? Right? We hear about trading software programs, etc. We'll revisit that later, but yes, at this very moment, this is kind of what we have. But there's a lot of uses with it, which I'm going to convince you of as we go through. How is the room currently being used? Right? Part of my job is to get more people to use it. There are some people using it. The FAU has an equity analyst program. They select 10 students a year. It's a year-long program, or 2 semesters, not including the summer. It's run by Dr. Knight. Actually, tomorrow they're competing in the state finals. It's an equity research type program. The 2nd year in a row they've made that state finals, and they're competing against all the big schools in Florida, UF, Miami, Stetson, FSU, etc. And they've made the first cut. So we're proud of them for that. The Center for Economic Education uses it. Dr. Bill Bosshart runs that. They have a stock market workshop there twice a year. Again, twice a year, not very much. The Equity Analyst program, though, meets every Friday, so that's a big use. It's used in the executive ed programs. I'm not exactly sure. Some faculty bring their classes there. To use the internet to sites like wallstreetsurvivor.com, where you can simulate trading. And that's most of it for right now, as far as I know. Looking to the future, what is the vision? We want it to be the destination lab, where classes are being held, outside courses are being held, and hopefully eventually where students can go to complete projects. So you go there for 1 or 2 sessions and then send your students back on their own time to the lab to use the Bloomberg terminal and other things to complete projects. Okay. So we want the lab being used all the time. Why aren't we there yet? Let's see. This is my opinion. Pretty new to FAU, but from what I've heard, when the room was originally opened in 2006, there was a lot of software there. It opened to a lot of fanfare. The problem was that it was on faculty to kind of learn that software and then implement it. And that's not very efficient if you think about it. The Bloomberg itself, I've been playing around with it for a few months, and I'm still a novice. If we have to make every single faculty member learn how to use this perfectly, it's too much, right? I'm teaching 3 courses. They're giving me a slightly lighter course load than I deserve, and I'm going crazy trying to manage this with my 3 courses. So that old method, at least in my opinion, is inefficient. I think it led faculty to abandon it in some sense. I could be wrong. Of course, the new method is going to make it much easier for faculty to integrate it into their curriculum. Okay, and we'll get into that. Some other things I've done besides just coming up with these for faculty, we're going to look at soon. Some little steps on the to the newly formed investment club. They're meeting for the first time next Wednesday. You'll probably get an email, hopefully announce it to your classes. So that will hopefully they'll hold meetings there, and we're going to have a trading competition that's going to be sponsored by some local businesses with prizes, etc. We'll have guest speakers and things of that nature. I'm designing some lunch seminars for Dr. Rod that then we're going to market outside to get local employees to come in. To me, that's a tough sell, but I think it will work. Dr. Knight has worked on some consulting projects, and there's a lot of need for bank employees to learn how to kind of store data, putting things in bins in Excel, et cetera, to classify accounts. So kind of working on things like that. We recently got contacted by a university in Switzerland that wants us to join a global trading competition. A few other schools in Florida have signed up, so we're going to use it for that. It's a freeware software program for now. So it is kind of being used. We're getting traction. The big step, of course, is going to involve you. Designing modules for faculty, of course, with your input as much as you want. And so you can use the room without having that enormous learning curve to overcome. Okay, why is it so important to use the trading room? Okay, what am I saying? In this day and age, do I really need to go to that lab? Well, the main reason is it enriches the educational experience for students, right? That's what we're here to do. We don't want to lose sight of that. How does it do? First, as we'll see in a bit, the real-world application of the classroom lecture. You'll see in a second, we're going to look at some currency textbook examples and then bring them to life through the software that's in the trading room. It makes our students more marketable to employers. I was reading a study about the University of Miami. They did a study of how long it took students to get hired after they implemented their trading room, and the time has shortened significantly. Okay? And it will make them better employees once they get there, right? The biggest fear, at least to me if I was in the administration, is our students get hired. And then once they're there, they see, well, they don't have the skills they really need. And then that hurts the FAU brand. So I think by incorporating some of this real-world aspect to it, they'll be better employees once they're there. Okay, some other benefits. Of course, if more people are using it, the local community is going to be more excited and we can get more funding. Right now, we're in sort of a coordination game. So I'm teaching development economics, and there the coordination problems are, you have a large company that wants to take advantage, say, of cheap labor in another country. So the large company says, we'll build the plant, but you have to train the workers to learn how to get the skills to use it. Okay? So the government in the other country says, no, build the plant and then we'll train them. So you get this problem where the two sides can't really meet. You may be sitting there thinking, well, if we get more and more software, then I'll bring my students. Well, we kind of had that model. It didn't work out. So we got to kind of get on board with let Kevin design a lot of things for us, and let's bring our students there, and then we'll get back all that other software and everything will be back to where it was. So we have to overcome that. And the immediate goals of more usage, the Bloomberg terminal itself, we have one. If you have 3, so that would be 2 additional terminals that we would need funding for, you get 9 more for free. Okay, so that would be 12 terminals. So that's huge. That's huge. And it's easy if we can say, well, the room is being used every single period by courses throughout different colleges throughout the semester. I think that'll make the difference. Now we need more software. Okay? And then, of course, once we have more funding, we have a technician who's always there, so students can come back and complete projects. So they're not just learning the day they're there with you, but they can come back and complete a project to reinforce what you've taught them. Okay, I kind of added this slide at the last moment because I figured I'd forget it at the end. You have to be careful, right? I was a student relatively recently in the master's program here. Lab day, I feel, is kind of okay, you don't have to do much work day, right? You're bringing your class to the lab. You have internet access, especially at the undergrad level. They're going to be checking Facebook. They're going to look at everything. So you have to make sure you be really strong and incentivize the students to pay attention. If you don't like giving extra credit, you can knock off that first bullet point. But stress that the material will be on the exam. If I'm a student and a teacher says to me, well, you're going to be tested on this, I'm a lot more likely to pay attention than if not. Okay, so we need to really stress that it isn't a free day. You know, and you can't really say, oh, this is practical experience, right? Because especially if you're a sophomore, you're not thinking yet about the job market. You're kind of in college mode. So I think that's important. Okay, so that's all the formalities. Let's look at some fun things. These are kind of some topics I'm going to go over. And while we're in it, how many are outside of finance here? Okay, so I'm going to try to weave in some interdisciplinary things I've thought of. You know, and then you can maybe say something like, yep.
So I'm so far out of science, I actually don't know what a Bloomberg terminal is.
Yeah,
Briefly tell me what it is. I don't need to.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a specialized keyboard, and it allows you to access all kinds of financial and news data on different products, but it can be used not just for trading in the finance world like that, things such as, say, energy credits. Let's say you're teaching environmental economics. There's all kinds of data there. There's all kinds of law data embedded. So it's kind of a sophisticated service. Yes, in a way. You can look up all different types of things across the top here. I should have had a picture here. But you'll see government, money market, municipal market, commodities. So all different kind of things you can get into different windows and then access other data through there. You're welcome. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's housed in the College of Business, but every meeting that I go to, and again, I'm the low man on the totem pole, this is all coming from me, I could be wrong, is I'm hearing about interdisciplinary, you know, the university wants to move that way, right? They want people to work with other departments. And there's some applications that could be used here. For instance, I don't want to jump the gun, but just for the medical college, right? It's new, it's open to a lot of fanfare. Not every person that goes through there, or in other colleges, becomes a doctor. So I have a bunch of friends on Wall Street. All of the people doing research are people with medical degrees in the biotech and pharmaceutical. So one course session might be, let's bring those students to the lab and see stuff they've learned about, right? Which I can't speak intelligently about, but say HIV, for it's worded in a report. And then you can almost think about how to do that after reading it and make up others for companies based on things you're teaching. So there's things of that nature. It needs more development, but working together, we can kind of have a module that would use that. So that's just one example.
I'm in the College of
Education.
So we're looking, we prepare teachers to teach kids who will eventually look.
So one of them would be use the machine. Right. How to open an account, right? If you're going to start at the very bottom. How do Exactly, so the ticker tape for that reason would be a great thing. Oh, I'm excited about this. Right.
Because they don't grasp that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
They think of themselves as just training people to do math.
course, of course. Have the TVs on. Show the news, things going by. Show on the new CNBC how the ticker tape is there also. So you can make a lot of connections that way. Yeah, it doesn't have to be super technical. Yeah, so yeah, and those are all good ideas. Yep.
How much does a Bloomberg terminal cost?
I have nothing to do with the budget idea, so I don't even want to say it. It's a monthly fee. It's not you just get one and that's it. Subscription-based. It's relatively expensive. It's relatively expensive. Yes, yes. Not a month, but yes, tens of thousands a year. Right.
So it's not a license like a university license, it's a license to use that terminal to connect it for the month then?
Yes, but you have a longer, it's not month, it's, I guess, but you pay month by month, but you sign a longer contract. I couldn't tell you, to be honest. But I could ask Dr. Knight and get back to you. Okay, so let's look at one thing first. Well, let's try to look at one thing first. Okay, if you're not familiar with this, don't get scared off. But one thing can be triangular arbitrage in currency. Right? If you're not really familiar with arbitrage, here's a simple example. Let's say you owned a Mickey Mantle rookie card. You really want to keep it. You want to give it to your grandkids. But you'd like to get some income out of it. I mean, this isn't going to happen in the real world, so stay with me. But this is what arbitrage is. Let's say you look at eBay, and someone's offering to buy that card. Right? They put out a thing. I'm willing to buy a Mickey Mantle rookie card for, so I have no idea what it's worth, $20,000. Let's say you look at UBid, different site, and I say, well, I'm willing to sell one for $19,000. Well, if you felt comfortable in the technology and you knew all the information that the corners weren't bent, you could sell your card on eBay, take in $20,000, use 19 of that $20,000 to buy it off of UBid, and you just made $1,000. So that's kind of what's going on here. So it's not as complicated as it may look. This is what we're going to look at in the textbook. Okay? As you notice, there's nothing moving here. All the values are chosen. Okay? What's going on here real quickly, you're starting with $5 million US. You want to see if you can make some kind of profit. Exchange it for euros, take those euros, put them in pounds, use the pounds to buy back dollars and money. Of course, here, the book shows you made $16,000. Nice. How can we liven this up with the Bloomberg terminal? Let's see. And it just stays there. Right? There's nothing there. You just kind of move on to the next topic. Okay, this is something I set up. The textbook example is still there. Let's kind of see what's here and see if it would be more exciting. If you see this flash green, the red, if it flashes green, let me know. The blue highlighted columns are live cells. They're coming into those cells through the terminal. So they're changing. As those are changing, the profit you would have got if you executed that trade, which can happen in the press of one button, is moving. If I had a little more experience with VBA, I could have made this blink. I could have made those quotes blink, but I put enough time in getting this that I didn't do that. But it could look even better. Flash green yet? We want it's all a criteria as if this was positive. But okay. So one thing is, this is a little bit more exciting to me. Okay, but that's going to fleet fast, right? You'll have people paying attention to it, especially. It should be changing more often. Well, it was changing, but the excitement there is going to fleet after a while. And I promise you, if it goes positive, it will flash green. I don't want to. I could change the thing to make it if you only lose 300, it flashes green, right? If we won the 336 million lottery, we can play. I love this. I don't care if I lose, but. Okay, but it's red for now. When I set it up in the Davie office before, it flashed green about 5 times in a row. I was shocked. But anyway, we can see this is exciting. This is going to capture a lot more interest than just this. But there's still, what's the educational value? Okay, yeah, it's exciting to me. Well, let's look at it. Right? It's pretty easy to me. First of all, one thing you always hear about arbitrage is it doesn't work very much. If I just look here at this textbook example, it's worked and it doesn't change. So it may be to me it always works. Here, we went green. Okay, we would have made some $50, right? Okay? This is red most of the time. Why? If arbitrage opportunities wouldn't be speaking to you guys, right? Sometimes they're there, but it's hard to know exactly when. I'd be out there doing it. It's kind of a riskless operation. We don't need to teach, even if we love teaching. Okay, so that's one thing, right? And it shows you it doesn't work very often. Other things, currency quotes move. The textbook example stays there. These change, right? So they've moved a bit. It's hard to tell. They don't move so international busier than it is. But let's look at the difference from the US dollar euro bid 1.02 to 0.76 now. If you've already covered this, has the euro strengthened or has the euro weakened? Has the dollar strengthened against the euro? Has the euro strengthened? So you can tie it into the coursework right there. Some other things just to look at. I always like to look at data and I say, well, where would I be confused if I was a student? Here's where I would be confused. Originally, when I took my dollars and exchanged them for euros, right? I'm taking $5 million. I got more than $5 million. Now I'm getting much less than $5 million, okay? And that means the euro has appreciated substantially. But now when I come down here, let's see what happens when I take my euros and then go into Great British pounds or getting pounds. Here, yeah, there's a difference, but not nearly as big as before. Why? Ask your students that. Why did? And the answer is because the euro also appreciated against the pound by a similar amount. But it's not so obvious. And if you can get that answer from a student, you know that's someone who's really on the ball. You can also say, okay, where are these currency quotes, right? We can tie this in and go on different directions. So if we just go to the actual Bloomberg screen itself, what did I want to do here? We can go to the news function. And of course, this will all be lit. The point of this, again, don't get over, this is on this for you. And giving this, right? I'm on both campuses. I'm on the Boca campus and I'm here. But if I type in currency, I can go to top currency, the top stories for the day. In a perfect world, we may look at these and say, okay, which way would have things moved? Or pound may strengthen to 3-year high versus euro. Open that up and see why. Think of the models you've used in your economics class or your international finance class, shifting the curves. And you've said if the curve will shift this way and the currency will depreciate. But if we can go into a real story and read what that analyst says, it'll tie it together. Okay? So it brings things to life. I think it just keeps people a lot more interested. Okay? If we wanted to look, euro strengthens on Greece optimism. We can click that story. Some of these things are highlighted. Euro. Oh, don't fail me now. Okay, that didn't work. Okay, that one didn't work, but if I just click the currency screen, thank you tech guys for getting this to work. This is where it failed before. This chart. Okay, well, I pulled up this chart. That thing just said about euro strengthening. This chart seems to have a downward pattern. What happened here, right? Accessing data. Well, this is a long stream of data. That currency, we get the period. Okay, so all these things I think are important. I don't think students really know, what they're looking for. And this kind of things will highlight. Well, wow, look at from yesterday. The euro. What happened? I'm not going to go through all of this, but you can see where I'm going with this. The euro really moved tremendously here. Doesn't look so much when you look at the scale of this axis, but that's about 1.5%. If you were an exporter doing some business and you didn't hedge your risk there, well, you lost $1.5 million. If your profit margin was only 6% to begin with, all right? So, I mean, there's all things you can tie in. All these things can you spend more time on them than I'm just spitting them out here because I'm trying to finish in 50 minutes. But these are the types of things I think that are important. Okay. And of course, this was from yesterday at 8 a.m. till whatever, the end of close. That's a tremendous move. So what you could do is just click there and go to a news story that would have kind of hinted at why this happened. So there's all kinds of drill down things. Let's go back and see what else, other kind of things. So I think that's the most exciting. Where am I? Let's just see. Fed forecast versus market forecast, right? I'm in the economics department. I'm also in the ITOM department. So we'll look at a QMB thing that may have some other management things, but I'll weave interdisciplinary things in there as well. Let's see if I missed anything with the, one thing with the College of Education. Sorry, this is how I teach my classes too. I go a little crazy. But just with the news. At Baruch, let's just go to top news headlines, sorry. At Baruch, they have their business journalism and other communications classes bring in students for 1 or 2 sessions a semester, just looking at how these, I don't know exactly what they do. Well, some of these headlines may not be perfect English. Why? Well, you got to get the words in the right spot so people click on your news story. That's how you get paid more, to have your feed in there. Right? These are all coming from different sources. So admittedly, I don't know that whole angle, but working together, we can think of things like that. If I can take a look at your syllabus, we could work that in. Okay, I didn't want to leave out the multidisciplinary. Okay, back to the Fed forecast. I think this is really important. I just stumbled on this. One day I was just in there. So we come to the main screen. And again, I'm going to really highlight, there's millions of pieces of data out there. That's not the important part for us. The important part is where's the educational value. So here's a bunch of information. I want to highlight you at number 81 up there in the top near the gray Fed forecasts. Okay, so showing students how to access the data, incredibly important. Let's turn our attention to the CPI up here. Okay, these numbers in that column are the actual forecast by the Fed. Their last forecast. The composite number underneath it is about 100 different brokerage houses, economic think tanks, etc., that you can drill down, which I did by accident, and see. But you could scroll down and see Bank of America's there, Goldman Sachs is there, the Conference Board, the Conference Board is there, etc. But I want to highlight this. Great, you've taught about CPI in your course. You've taught what real GDP is as opposed to nominal GDP. What's the real important part? Where's the value added? Well, I have a lot of things. Recently, the Fed came out and said they're going to target inflation to be 2% a year. So why is their forecast 1.6? Okay? The composite forecast is 2. The market believes what the Fed says, but the Fed actually has their forecast still under. And this is all updated every day. So it's not because the data is bad, right? Bloomberg, the most trusted source in business. Okay? What else? That's one. And you can have a whole discussion about, is the Fed credible? Okay, and that's what's kind of happened. Okay, the Fed's saying what they're going to try to do. Well, what if they don't do it? Then the market's not going to believe them. It could lead to information problems. And the whole system is a little. Let's look at some other things. Notice here again with this 1.6 for 2 for the composite. The market believes inflation is going to be higher. What does that mean? We know just from things are going to be more expensive according to the market than what the Fed is saying. If you want to keep it in economics, what's even more important? Social Security payments are indexed to the CPI. Monetary policy is separate from fiscal, but if the Fed's forecasting 1.6, I bet you on the budget side, right, they're going to use 1.6. If it comes in to be 2, right, the budget deficit's going to widen. Doesn't sound like much, 0.5%, but I kind of worked it out, and it could be over $10 billion. All right, not huge, but something to get the discussion going. On the top, real GDP growth. Notice the Fed. Much more optimistic than the market. So they're below on inflation and above on growth. Wrong on both of those, the things compound. So there's a lot of things to really look in here. And of course, you'd spend more time. You'd write these things down. And it gives a sense of what you should be looking at instead of just the numbers, instead of just things flashing. Want to drill down PCE, it's another measure of inflation. Fed policymakers look at that most. Here, they're both on the same page. They have the same forecast, but on the CPI, which is indexed to Social Security, they're not. These are all important things. And what you could do from there is exercise-wise, right? This is just pointing things out. As an exercise, let's look at the unemployment forecast for 2013. The Fed is 0.25% below the composite forecast. Okay? And you can kind of use that. Okay, what would be the difference in the number of unemployed people? And if you're in economics, when you're looking at unemployment, you're looking at the size of the labor force. So if you gave your students a population number and a labor, half of them would probably say the 0.25% difference off the population number. That would be wrong. It reinforces what you've taught, that the unemployment is based off the labor force. So there's all kinds of things that you can really kind of bring life to what you're teaching, just spitting it out. Let's look at the QMB. Okay, not too much more. What did I want to do with the QMB example? Okay, so the QMB I kind of really designed. Let's say you had a 3-hour course, okay? And I actually did this along with Dr. Rod. This was my portion. He did regression. We're not going to go through all this. So I actually gave a 3-hour course on this, and we used some of the tools in the trading room. You may say, okay, there's one Bloomberg terminal. It's going to be a little hard to get all the students interacted on this. Don't use it. There's other places to get data. It will help the learning process. So we kind of went through the lecture. Let me put this here. What is forecasting, etc. That's not what I'm concerned about. What I'm concerned about is this. We're teaching about moving averages. Where is this used? We could go to these sites and look. You can do that in your course now too, right? We can access the internet, so that's not really adding value by just. But let's see where we can add value. Okay, this was a data set that I got from the textbook. I got to escape this. I think I have it open. And we went through, and I had emailed this file in that section. And we went through and we calculated a simple moving average on this data. They did it along with me. That's interaction. We can't force everyone to have a laptop in the classroom. We want them to, because they'll use it for different reasons. But we in the computer, get them to do things, showing how to have them do it. That's the value added of a computer lab and a trading room. Let's go back to the PowerPoint. Okay, and then you can go through all your questions. We did this again for other factors. Where was the other value added? Do together for a real data set. Okay, we don't all have Bloomberg terminals, so we can't get the stock data from Bloomberg. Well, we can go to Yahoo and get it. Let's go there. I thought I had this open. Okay, anyway, very easy to do. Sorry. And this is all very, very easy to do. Click on Finance. I think that example was about ExxonMobil. Get ExxonMobil's data. If you want historical data, it's over here. Click it. We can, and it will export into Excel perfectly. Here's the key point here, right? That's all okay. They may know how to do that already, or we can just write that and they do it. Here's the key point. The Equity Analyst Program. Very difficult, right? So post brightest of the bright. We imported this data into Excel. I asked them to calculate the simple moving average. Every single person got it wrong. We had just gone over it. Just really simple. You just, 3 period, you just add up the 3 previous data points. Take their average and you use that as your forecast. All right, we can teach that to middle schoolers. Every single one of them got it wrong. What's the value added? When you import the data from Yahoo, it reverses the time order. So it has the most current at the top and the oldest at the bottom. So they scroll down to the bottom of the data set, just like we did in the Excel sheet I had set up before and calculated. So they all got it wrong. Imagine you do that to a client sending out a report. I promise you none of them will do that again, right? Because now we made them make the mistake and now they can see it. Always be careful of what you're doing. So there's a lot of value added if people are doing things. And it's less repetition, right? These are the brightest. We still repeat, right? I still memorize when I was doing my master's degree. I couldn't get something, I try to memorize it. Well, if they do it, then they won't, right? They all went to the bottom of that sheet, calculated the easy thing. They didn't think about what was going on. They won't make that mistake again. And they didn't because they made the finals in that forecast. And of course, the big thing after that is as you're working on all this, then we just make them do an exercise such as this. There's other things in here as well, but the one on the back. Okay, and of course you can send them back to the lab. I'm sorry. Lab if need be. But I'll tell you kind of what we did here, what the point of this was. After we looked at all the different kinds of averages you could compute, we have them go back and do it themselves. And we also looked at error measurements of these things we haven't spoke about here. But the point was at the end, we looked at, in Q&B we're going to look at about 6 or 7 different types of forecasting methods. Gotten to 3 of them. At the very end, it asked you, did you notice something strange when you were calculating error of these forecasts? And this I was pleasantly surprised at. There. I mean, it's not up here. But 5 of the 10 students raised their hand, they knew it. And the answer was that using those moving averages, the error was always positive. Error was always positive. So our actual data was always above our forecast. In forecasting, there shouldn't be a systematic error. If there is, you can improve on it. So they noticed, well, every single forecast for about 6 months of data was above. So then we moved into the next topic, which was trend projection, and we showed why it's important to think about what type of forecasting method to use for what time series. And they figured it out for themselves. They didn't know to then use trend projection because we hadn't taught it. But they kind of could see, okay, it makes sense. I'm consistently missing. So there's a lot of it in learning. Let's just see what else. That was really a 3-hour lecture. And of course, we had another lecture about deseasonalizing things as well. Let me just kind of go back and see one thing I think I missed. And then I can take a few questions since I've spoken so quickly. Other College of Business courses, accounting. In so much financial, okay, we can look up kind of anything. Let's see. Right, go into a certain company, Microsoft, financial analysis. Okay, you'll have all the income statements, all the cash flow statements, all the ratio analysis, etc. There's all templates built in Excel that automatically set it up. You would just go into Excel and say, I want to extrapolate this data, and it would come in. Test-wise, if you do it in the course, do it there. You're concerned about them building these statements from scratch. Edit out some of the numbers. So you can show that they still know how to get to those numbers, but show them where this is used. You don't have to reinvent the wheel and have them make these from scratch there. Save time going. More difficult concepts when teaching. Just one other thing, I just want to come back to I'm kind of losing myself here. Just come back to that fancy spreadsheet, of course. Interdisciplinary. We saw this number keeps changing, right? What else would I do as an exercise for the business students here? Well, have them build this from scratch for different currencies. Have them build this from scratch for different currencies. That's a nice skill. Then analyze it. Well, if you use some currencies that are lower volume, right? FAU is very diverse. A lot can choose a country that they're interested in and see that this maybe doesn't flash as much because those currencies don't trade as much, right? It gets them involved. Okay, I can do something myself. I'm teaching international economic development for the first time. When I took it, and a topic was picked for me, 20 papers they have to do. Instead of 120 page, they have to do 21-page papers. And 10 of the topics are going to be optional. They have to be related to what we're learning, and they have to apply things. But they get to choose. Example here, instead of me imposing the currencies on them, let them look at it. And then this is different. Plenary here. Or there's, I don't know how to do it. I teach QMB in the ITOM department, but I'm not really the Excel guy. I'm sure there's a way to calculate how many times this changes. When it flashes, how many of the trades are losing, how many are winning, and export that to a different cell. Do different currency pairs have different success rates in arbitrage? Why, right? Theoretically, you could say, well, these currencies trade so often, the spreads are tighter. Right? Some people say, well, you may have a larger opportunity to make an arbitrage there because the spreads are so tight. Right? Remember also, you're not just getting one price. That's the bid price. There's an offer price also. There's a spread. And tie that into the lecture. Compute the algorithms to make things that are happening. My friend growing up was a computer geek. And that's what he does now. He's on Wall Street. He doesn't trade. He doesn't do anything. The traders come to him and look at this in the data, and he builds the program that automatically executes it. In Baruch, that's a whole course is given completely in the trading room on that, financial engineering or something of that. Oh, we're green again. Okay, well, that's kind of what I had. But again, please feel free to contact me, send emails. I'm here supposed to be working with you, for you. I get into this. I always tell my students, if you're emailing me, I like that. It means you're interested. If I can have you guys email me, how can I tie this in even if you don't have ideas? A lot of these I just came up with off the top of my head. Some of them I didn't, like the financial engineering, but I came up with. So I can maybe think of some things. Okay? Any questions? Yes.
This is interesting. It ties to something that came in the presentation this morning, that these tech approaches, particularly if information is changing. The person this morning was talking about how some aspects of politics change regularly and other aspects don't. And I'm wondering whether these kinds of approaches are relevant when the information doesn't change. You know, if you're teaching introductory biology, you're teaching a lot of stuff that's been known for decades.
Right.
I think it's really exciting for your students to
Yeah, I don't remember Baruch where they said things about intro biology, but what I would maybe think about is depending on what you're speaking about there, maybe in some of these research reports, basic topics are spoken about. You know, if you're looking at cells or, you know, I can't say biology, but any kind of terms in these health reports that are coming out here, maybe there's for one lecture during the semester. I have to look a little more, but what context? So I can write other universities and say in biology or the life sciences used this and how, and get back to you. Yeah, absolutely. That's perfect. We're not going to have in the trading room, but it's nice so they can get another angle instead of just absolutely. Maybe specialized things. The master's degree would be better for that instead of Bio 101. But I'm sure there's ways to tie it in as well. Offhand, I don't know. Okay. Well, thank you very much for coming. And I finally found a use for these business cards they printed out for me. So if you want to take one to have my email, feel free to contact me.